Surprises. Hello, everybody. Today, I want to talk about just how the fact that we don't really know people and the fact that they can surprise us, right? And if any of you are kind of like me, where you try to predict the behavior of people, but it's kind of difficult, or I mean, sometimes you think you're right. Well, you don't see everything all the time, right? But anyway, I was watching this video on Lupe Fiasco where he's teaching at a class at MIT, right? Like this motherfucker is actually teaching a class, and he talked about a couple things. Like I haven't finished the video because it's kind of long, but I'm gonna finish it. But he talked about surprises, and I had never seen anybody talk about surprises like from an investigative perspective or from a scientific academic perspective. But I think surprises, the element of a surprise, for example, is well, he says, and I think it's true, it gets you to learn things, right? Because when you're surprised by something, it's kind of like you had some of that information, but not the rest of it, right? Because otherwise it wouldn't surprise you. Otherwise, you would just kind of be like, you would just ignore that, right? If you didn't have something to complement it in your head. But because you understand something about that, you're able to understand it and it's able to surprise you. So like when you want to learn things, Lupe Fiasco says that everything you learn has probably been through a surprise. And I say, okay, let's look into that a little bit more. So surprises, when you're surprised by a person, right? Like let's say you know what someone is like, or you predict when you first meet a person what that person is going to be like. So you do certain things to get certain results, right? And then they surprise you, so you learn something different about that person, right? Like you can say, well, I think this person is going to quit, right? Or I think they're hardworking, so they're not gonna quit. They're gonna perceive, right? They're gonna persist and persevere, and they quit, right? So those type of life situations, especially with people, can surprise you, right? And what does that mean? That means that you learn something about that person, right? You learn basically. Now I was reading this other text, and I want to take this surprise element a little bit further because there was this study where basically parents that drop off their kids at a daycare, I think the book is called Freakonomics, they drop off their kids at a daycare, and so when it's time to pick them up, a lot of parents are late, right? So the daycare was trying to figure out how they could make it so that the parents would stop being late. So they imposed a fine. They said every time you're 10 minutes or more late, you're gonna have a $3 fine that day, right? And then basically what they found out is that more parents started to arrive late. And then there's like this whole chat about incentive. And I was trying to understand why, because the book then starts talking about something else. But then it eventually comes back to the daycare example. And you know, that surprised me, because I was like, why would there be more people, you know, being late when now there's an economical sanction, right? There's a consequence, and it's financial. And it turns out that when they pay the fine because they're late, that actually takes away the moral incentive of guilt, because they're parents, right? So they feel guilty that they pick up their children late. So, you know, it's kind of like, what? And first of all, okay, so that surprised me, right? So I think a surprise is a fraction, right? We could say 33% of the truth, because you're surprised, you learn something new, right? And what happens after you learn that information, right? You want to know why. Why is that way? Why did this person quit if I thought they weren't going to quit? Why are these parents, you know, why are there more parents now that are being tardy when now there's an economical sanction, or there's an economic sanction? And the book explains it. Okay, so he says, okay, this is why. It's because of the moral it's because of the moral sanction, the moral sanction. When they feel guilty, they can now stop feeling guilty because they say, well, I'm paying, right? So yeah, it's kind of weird. So you understand it, right? You understand the information, you understand why, and now there's another element. You need to know what to make of it, right? Which is kind of like the crazy thing with the surprises. You learn something, it surprises you, and what do you want to know? You want to know why. So someone explains to you, and you're like, oh, okay, I understand now. But what do you make of that? How can you apply that? What does that mean to your life? Are there things that are happening in your life, or even with you, that where that applies, right? You need to connect the dots, because as soon as there's a piece of information over here and a piece of information over there, and you connect those two things, and you're like, whoa, I never realized that those two things were related, right? Which is the next process of a surprise, right? So the surprise is the immediate reaction, right? It's like, whoa, I'm surprised. Now I want to know why. Why? Okay, you explained it to me, and now I want to know what to do with it, right? Because they say that when you comprehend, right? That's the difference between understand and comprehend. When you comprehend something, you know what to do with it, right? That's why therapy works, because when you understand things about yourself, then you're able to know what to do. You're able to act, right? Which is ultimately the objective of thought, right? Action through your hands, through your fingers, right? To create or to destroy, right? Well, that's another topic. But yeah, I just wanted to chat a little bit about this. Surprise, what do you think? Do you think surprise is something that is necessary in order to learn? Without surprise, I mean, because you're surprised, like when people tell jokes, right? Like when someone tells a joke and it's funny, it surprises you, right? And that surprise is kind of what makes you laugh. But yeah, I think there's more to it. You also want to understand why, and then you want to know what to make of that. Because if you're like me and you try to predict human behavior, and you try to act according to what you think you know about people, then the surprise element becomes really, it makes everything unstable, because then you can't really, you might say, okay, I'm going to do this like this time, and it may give you a different result than before, right? And even though it's the same thing, or maybe you may try something different and it will give you a different result, but an unfavorable one, right? So it's hard to predict, right? It's what I'm trying to get to. But I think we can make the most of it and play around, right? Experiment. That's I think the key word here, experiment. Humans are prone to error, but you got to learn from your errors. You got to learn from your mistakes, right? Don't repeat the same mistake twice. And when you learn from that, then you're able to apply it to your life, right? So I think that's all I got for this video. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.